Over the past 30 years, Geoff Shreeves has covered the Premier League across the pond and interviewed countless players and coaches while also being a prominent voice in the FIFA/EAFC video game series. Now he's here stateside with us where we will have a little story time with Shreeves. And we know this guy is full of great stories. If these pictures don't tell a story themselves. Geoff, you're smiling, going through memory lane there a little bit.
I'll tell you why I'm smiling. Looking back over the years, I can see myself getting fatter and fatter.
No.
I'm thinking that was 3 years and 4 stone ago. And
Geoff, you look great.
But great memories, great memories.
Great memories. Okay, so let's start it off with your favorite moment of your career at a game.
Oh, my days. I mean, you talk about over 3 decades. Games that I've covered, I mean, Champions League final, Manchester United in the Nou Camp, Barcelona, to be there then. And then also, when you're the pitchside reporter, that's the moment you love, when you get the instant reaction. So interviewing Sir Alex on the pitch, all of the players is fantastic fun. Same applied for Istanbul, Champions League final, Liverpool in 2005. And because when you are the host broadcaster for that particular country, you get closer to the team, you get closer to the players. So Jamie Carragher, our colleague now, him and Steven Gerrard, the local lads, they're always exceptionally good with us as well. They really looked after us. So when you're on the pitch and you capture that moment and the wonderment in Steven Gerrard's eyes at what they had just achieved and the manner in which they had achieved it, that was obviously sensational. And then, of course, you'd have to say the Aguero moment when Manchester City, that was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. But look, I've been really, really lucky. I've been at so many amazing football occasions that... but the ones that stand out, I think, is the late goals, Ali. The late goals, the late twists. For me, those are the ones that stand out.
As someone who has also done pitchside reporting in their career, is there a better way to take in a game?
No, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes,
from a working perspective, I guess.
Yeah, because when you're the pitchside reporter, your seat is next to the dugout, next to the coach's bench. And they can stand and look at the game. It's a rubbish view because you see the players from about their knees upwards because of the camber of the pitch.
And if you had a hard time with that, imagine me. I'm all of like, what, 5'2"?
And also,
but the energy down there is insane.
Yeah, but in the early days it was difficult though because they weren't allowed monitors. They weren't allowed. The coaches were. But we, as the reporters, we had a monitor. So often the coach would say, "Hey Geoff, was that a penalty or not?" Now that's fine, being asked that.
Okay.
But you've got the fourth official thinking, OK, is he going to snake out my mate, the referee in the middle? And also, as well, sometimes it's subjective. So I remember Terry Venables, the Tottenham manager, he said, "Geoff, was that a penalty?" They just conceded. I said, "Yes." Came out half-time. You said it was a penalty. It was never a penalty. Oh, it's just my opinion.
It's my opinion. Don't kill the messenger.
Exactly.
All right, well, you touched on him a little bit. Sir Alex Ferguson, is he the best manager all time?
I think in my time, yes, because of what he did, the way he rebuilt a club. I mean, others have their merit. Jose, Arsene Wenger, Sir Bobby Robson was wonderful to work with as well. A lot of the current managers, Jurgen Klopp is exciting. Pep, you just never know what you're going to get, either in a good way. But Sir Alex Ferguson, yes, if you took everything into account as well, and he also, Ali, you would have liked him because he liked journalism. He understood journalism, he understood newspapers, and he was so clever, he was so cunning. Every time he gives an interview, it was a message, either to his players or to his board or to the fans. He knew he could use the media as a medium.
And those managers usually do very well as a result because that can be something that, as you've seen before, can break a locker room if coaches don't necessarily know how to go about that part of their responsibility. Do you have a favorite Fergie story from your time covering him?
I've got lots of Fergie stories because we fell out on a couple of occasions and it got more than sparky, more than fiery. One time we had a fallout. It was over. He felt I'd quizzed Cristiano Ronaldo too hard and basically said to him, "You dived in a game." And we had a big fallout and it was spectacular. There was a lot of inappropriate language. But the funny thing was, and he said, right, that's it, you're barred, because he used to bar journalists all the time. If you're a journalist in...
So he loved journalism, but he would bar journalists. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it was a rite of passage to be barred. But the very next night, I was doing a charity auction, and Sir Alex had kindly put in, come to a game, be his guest. I'm stood on this rostrum saying, yeah, he's a great guy, he's really good company. The night before, the world and his dog has seen us go head to head. But he played tricks on you, joke around and stuff like that. Yeah, great fun, great fun.
All right, who, in your experience, is the most misunderstood person in football?
Misunderstood? I wouldn't necessarily say misunderstood, but when you see somebody on television, a football player or a manager, you see one dimension of them. Mm-hmm. So think of Jose Mourinho, for instance. He's all fire and brimstone, and I mean, when he first arrived, for us in TV, box office.
Dream come true.
Yeah. Because he looked sensational, he sounded sensational, and he was winning as well. Mm-hmm. So he was brilliant. So he has this aggressive attack dog style to him as well, but he's also extremely personal. He's a great animal lover. When I lost my dog of many years, I was doing a game. He was the manager of Tottenham, and I don't know how he knew about it, but pre-match he saw me, he's marched across, came over, he just came and said hugs, big hugs, because he's a dog lover. He's got a really soft side to him as well. That's sweet.
That's a great story. You love when that human element kind of comes into play with the job.
But look, you know yourself, you've interviewed enough people, mm-hmm. They are human. Yeah. They've got family, they've got feelings as well.
But some are very guarded, and they don't like to let that guard down.
Yeah, because that's also part of them protecting the locker room, protecting their position as well. So, and every single word they say is scrutinised. Everything, like Ruben Amorim at the moment, every single word, every nuance, every pause, even what he doesn't say is analysed. Yeah. So it's tough, and it's got tougher for them. But when they do let themselves go and let their personalities come across, that's why I love Ange Postecoglou, mm-hmm. because he's so authentic. I mean, he can be grouchy, he can be cheery, he can be all of it, but I tell you what he is always, he's always him.
Is Ange the most authentic that you can think of?
No.
Maybe just right now.
In a different way, Arne Slot is very, very authentic because he never gets up there, he never gets down there, never gets carried away. He as well, I like the way he conducts himself. I think he's really impressive.
Something that tends to happen when you are tasked with interviews, especially in a chaotic setting after a game, players are running around, is that you can't always get who you want. So what is the one interview, Geoff, the one that got away?
Oh, there's loads.
Too many to count.
There's been so many. It's when you don't get the play. Sometimes if you're not the host broadcaster,
right,
and you get sent somebody who is way down the pecking order, it's not so much who you don't get, it's getting the right interview, because a lot of the clubs will try and protect their players, and there'll be somebody who's, another yellow means they're suspended for a huge game, say, look, we want to talk to him, it's a really important story. No, you can have him. Or they've won 5-0 and they offer you the goalkeeper. Oh, thanks.
Great. Yeah. What am I going to ask this guy? What was your perspective back there watching all those goals going on the other side of the pitch? Okay, sticking with the interview questions, what is a moment from an interview that keeps you up at night still?
A moment from an interview. That made so many. But there was one guy when I first interviewed. I won't name him, save his blushes and mine. He'd just come off the training ground, and he had like a big brown mark here. I said, "Do you want to wipe your face? You're covered in mud." He said, "No, it's a birthmark." Oh. So
what did you say after that?
Sorry, mate.
Nothing we can do about that one.
Yeah, you just have to move on. I remember, in fact, it was Jamie Carragher. I was interviewing him after a Champions League game, and I'd forgotten they'd changed the old away goals count double rule. Mm. So I asked him the question. He just looked at me. He said, "I thought they changed that rule." I went, "Yeah, you're right."
Was it live at that point?
Thankfully, it was recorded. Thankfully, but it still exists out there somewhere.
Somewhere.
Cara reminds me of it all the time.
What is every single time you see him?
No, but he has brought it up in conversation previously.
Okay, how is that working with guys that you used to cover during their playing days and now working with them as colleagues in the broadcasting space?
In the main, good, because most of the guys that go into the media were the ones who always put themselves forward and were always happy to cooperate, always happy to help. So you knew they were good talkers and you knew they were going to embrace the media. So, yeah, that's not a problem. But sometimes it's surprising when you get ex-players who didn't want to do the media. Gary Neville never used to do a lot of media. I mean, Gary's funny because he's always a good interviewer. When he retired, and I said, OK, I'll have a chat about your Manchester United career, etc. And we knew each other well. And he said, Geoff, don't ask me about when I kissed Paul Scholes in the Manchester derby. You know the famous goal celeb? Yes. I said, there's no chance of me not asking that.
Have you ever had a guy who maybe during their career, not that they didn't like you, but maybe felt hard done by some of the questions that you had asked that has since come back and said, hey, I get it now? Like especially the ones that transition to more of a media role.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when they're watching at home, people think sometimes it can appear adversarial and they feel that it's a bit frosty. But 95% of the time it ends with a handshake and no problem. But also as well, in our game, you're not looking to catch people out. You're not looking to turn people over. You are looking... I got a really good tip very early on in my career, which is never forget you've got to go back. So you can interview a manager who's just been beaten, say it's the first time you've interviewed him at a club. You nail him to the wall, you tell him how rubbish his team was, you tell him how rubbish his tactics were, you do all of that. Next time he'll be ready for you. So they're doing their best. So yes, you've got to ask questions that they don't necessarily want to answer, but do it respectfully, do it in a manner that you appreciate they're doing their best, and also you will then be welcome another time around. And the other thing I always did as well, if we had what I call a curved ball, Ali, like say I was interviewing a manager and he didn't know, but we had a story that one of his players was in a nightclub at 3 o'clock or whatever the next morning. I would never just hit him with that. I'd say, before we start the interview, I'd say, look, by the way, we've been told this and I need you to ask you about this. And that just gives them time to prepare because it's not his fault. You know, you're not looking...
He's not the subject of the story.
Exactly.
Great advice. Great advice, not just in media, but in life in general, which we can always expect anytime Geoff Shreeves is in the house. Great times with Story Time with Geoff Shreeves. Thanks, Geoff.
You're too kind.